the second day after agreeing to the proposal. My fiancé's mistress blocked me right on the main street. "If you cannot tolerate me, miss, I would rather bash my head and die." I finally managed to deal with that pestering mistress. In the second year of our marriage, my husband privately pledged his life to a concubine-born daughter from a humble family. Jiao Jiao wants to be my only one for the rest of our lives. I hope you will grant us this wish, madam. I raised my head, looking at him in astonishment. Now my brother has been appointed prime minister, and my maiden family are imperial merchants personally appointed by the Empress Dowager. Does he still take me for the daughter of a third-rank official from back then? I laughed. "Husband, could it be that you want to divorce your wife?" The commandery princess brought the duke personally to our door to propose marriage for the young duke, and the betrothal gifts filled the courtyard. The commandery princess is the Empress Dowager's adopted daughter, and the duke is a founding minister with merits won on the battlefield. For this marriage, there is only one choice. My dad tremblingly sent the people out, while mother held my hand and wiped her tears. That young duke has been spoiled into a complete wreck by the princess. He hangs around the red light districts all day long. If he wasn't shut out from proposing to higher families, how would he ever come to us, a lowly third-rank official? If our yin-yin marries over there, don't tell me she has to battle it out with his concubines all day. My brother frowned, and Dad remained silent. I sighed, solemnly knelt before them, and said, "Father, Mother, your daughter is willing to marry into the Duke's manor, serve my husband, extend the bloodline, and continue the family glory." "You?" Father was taken aback. I continued, "The results of the spring examination will be released any day now. Elder brother has studied hard for over 10 years, and high honors are just around the corner. Your daughter also does not wish to be beneath others. Our Lin family has been a family of upright scholars for generations. Now that it's reached elder brother and my generation, if we want to move up, the only path is to step into the nobility. I hope father and mother will grant this wish. As things stand, if there is marital harmony, I will be happy. If not, I won't be troubled either. I'm marrying the heir of the Duke's mansion. As for who the heir is, it doesn't matter. I just didn't expect trouble to come knocking before I'd even married into the Duke's mansion." On the day the spring exam results were posted, my sedan chair was stopped on the capital's busiest street by the young Duke's mistress. That mistress knelt pitifully before the sedan door, sobbing as she spoke. "Miss, please show some mercy. I only hope that when you marry into the Duke's manor, you will allow me a way to live. I am willing to serve you tea and water, or even work like a beast of burden." More and more commoners gathered to watch. The maid Xiaoji said spitefully, "Even the princess didn't let her into the manor, yet she came begging to you, miss, to take her in or not. Isn't this making things difficult for you?" Xiaoji actually isn't stupid. This mistress, called Xunyang, was originally from the entertainment bureau, born of lowly status. The young duke bought her freedom and has been keeping her on the outside for over half a year. If she could be brought into the mansion, would the young duke let her stay outside? Xiao Tao scolded angrily. "My young lady hasn't married into the duke's estate yet. She can't make decisions for you yet. Who are you putting on this show for? Leave at once." Xunyang came prepared. How could she let this go easily? She cried and made a scene, saying, "The whole capital knows the legitimate daughter of the Lin family is going to marry the young duke. Can that be taken back? You just despise my lowly birth and can't tolerate me? That's all. If you don't agree, miss, Xunyang will smash her head and die right here today." The onlookers began to talk amongst themselves. That daughter of Lord Lin is ruthless enough. In the future, she's bound to be a jealous mistress. Who says otherwise? Everyone says the Lin family girl is well-read and sensible, perfect for a family. but it looks like it's all just for show. There isn't a soul in this whole world willing to share her husband with another woman. I raised my eyebrows. This Xunyang really does have a bit of petty cleverness. But she picked the wrong day to try and show me who's boss. I raised my voice. Miss, do you know what day it is today? Xunyang froze, unable to get a word out. I said, today is the day the spring examination results are posted. As if to confirm my words, the sound of firecrackers came from not far away. Mixed in was someone shouting loudly, "Young Master Lin placed third! Young Master Lin placed third!" Almost in an instant, the soldiers clearing the area had arrived. Before Xunyang could continue her act, she was already grabbed and thrown aside. Only then did I step out of the sedan chair, raising my head with a smile. I am young Master Lin's sister, here at the behest of my parents to welcome my elder brother. Immediately, flattering voices rang out incessantly. It was as if the farce from just a moment ago had never happened. In this world, women's affairs are merely gossip for idle chatter, while men's affairs are matters of paramount importance. Xunyang is clever, yet she fails to understand that my marrying into the Duke's estate will not change in any way because of Xunyang, Wanyang. As I passed by her side, I didn't look at her, only said, "Miss, you can block my path, but you cannot block Tanhua Lang's path. But we will have opportunities to meet in the future. Don't be in a rush." On account of Xunyang blocking me in the street, the Duke's manor added 2 more pairs of jade-carved wild geese as betrothal gifts. I heard these were given by the Duke on the day the commandery princess got married. After all, it was the Duke's mansion taking a bride, and Her Highness the County Princess was the adopted daughter of the current Empress Dowager. So on the wedding day, the spectacle was naturally as grand as it could be. And as for the Lin family, a scholarly family of clear reputation, what people remembered from this grand wedding was the 10 miles of red dowry that was carried for 3 days and 3 nights. After all, my mother was born into a merchant family, and by her generation, she was the only daughter. I was dragged through the motions all day long, and by the time I finally got a break, I was already sitting in the bridal chamber. When the young Duke, Shen Kongye, lifted my red veil, I smiled shyly. The capital's famous ladies' man sure enough has a handsome face. This way, my future children certainly won't be ugly either. This marriage was a business transaction to begin with. Since I'm to marry a noble, a good-looking noble is naturally more pleasing. Shen Kongyi was stunned, but then made a proper bow to me, saying with gentle elegance, "I had no idea my lady possessed such good looks." I gave a dazzling smile, my face flushing red, and said softly, "Husband." The red candles flickered. Shen Kongye sat down beside me and skillfully undid my buttons. In the middle of the night, Shen Kongye was sleeping soundly. I pulled my collar tight and quietly climbed out of bed, staring dazed at the red candle burning brightly on the table. Nanny once told me that the red candle on the wedding night must burn all night long to symbolize marital harmony and longevity. But ever since I was little, I haven't been able to sleep soundly if there is light at night. My hand holding the scissors to trim the candle trembled, and I actually snuffed the red candle right out. On the first day after the wedding, I went to the commandery princess's manor to keep my mother-in-law company for the day. The Duke had returned to the capital from the border for the wedding, and was also staying at the manor these few days. I was well-mannered and sensible, attentive and thorough, and my in-laws were very satisfied with me. On the second day, I entered the palace to pay respects to the Empress Dowager, bringing 100 longevities embroidery I had stitched myself. I also pinned a flower in the Empress Dowager's hair, coaxing her into beaming smiles, and she rewarded me with many things. On the third day, Shen Kongye accompanied me back to my maiden home. After having lunch at my parents' place, on the carriage back to the Duke's manor, he held my hand, thought it over repeatedly, and said, "Madam, you have already seen Xunyang that day on the street. It was just because she loves me and couldn't help herself. Since the household affairs are now up to you, madam, have someone bring her back to the manor." My hands turned cold. This day has come after all. I just didn't expect it so soon. I suddenly thought of the candle wick that was pinched out on our wedding night. I took Shen Kongyi's hand and said with distress, "Husband, you and I are one. It is my duty to look after the concubines and ensure peace in the household. It's just that we only recently wed. Bringing her in so hurriedly might be bad for your reputation. Besides, you know father's temper. He won't be leaving the capital this whole month." Shen Kongye frowned and eyed me, as if trying to figure out the hidden meaning behind my words. I continued, "Rest assured, husband, I will definitely bring her into the manor. Just give me a little more time so I can arrange a respectable identity for her. When the time comes, we will bring her in and raise her to be a noble concubine. What do you think, husband?" Shen Kongye's brows finally smoothed out. He grasped my hand and said excitedly, "Madam's arrangement is excellent. I had already planned this out long ago. My mother-in-law cares about face and values birth status. Shen Kongye couldn't get a single benefit from her, so naturally, he would come begging to me. However, I naturally had my own plans for dragging things out. Because my child must be the eldest legitimate son of the Duke's household. At this point, I can do without conjugal love or marital harmony. But since we're each taking what we need, I absolutely must get my compensation. This is a principle I understood from reading account books with my mother since I was little. Half a year later, only after I was 3 months pregnant and the pregnancy was stable, did I bring Xunyang into the manor. At the same time, I also took in 3 more concubines for Shen Kongye. I picked these out specifically based on his preferences. Every single one is a stunner, fresh and alluring. On the day the 4 concubines entered the household to serve me tea, I sat in the seat of honor, gently stroking my slightly bulging belly. Xunyang, who had been raised to noble concubine, saw that the new concubines were each prettier than the last. She gritted her teeth and looked at Shen Kongye with tears in her eyes. Shen Kongye, however, was looking them over one by one, busy having the time of his life. Xunyang wrung her handkerchief as her tears fell. "That's right. This is exactly me putting her in her place. In this Duke's mansion, if she's smart, she'll know whose breath she needs to rely on. If a man is reliable, then you can rely on him. They're unreliable. Still have to rely on me, the mistress of the house. You 4 must get along well from now on. Serve the heir well. Spread branches and leaves for the Duke's manor. And continue the lineage." I gently stroked my lower abdomen and said with a smile, Hearing that I was so sensible, unlike other noble ladies who get jealous and petty, the princess heaped praise on my virtuous reputation to those in the palace. And because I was with child, an endless stream of rewards from the palace was sent into the Duke's manor. The year the child in my womb was born, blessing the Duke's manor with a legitimate eldest son, I was conferred the title of Lady of Mandate. It was also this year that my elder brother was appointed Prime Minister, and my mother's maiden family's business network spread throughout the imperial relatives and nobility. I originally thought this life would pass by smoothly without any trouble, until Shen Kongye became a massive laughingstock in the capital. I had just given birth not long ago, and aside from keeping the commandery princess and the empress dowager company, I didn't really like going out. That day, I was teasing my son in the cradle when Xiaoji said Xunyang was asking to see me. I ordered the nanny to take the child away. Xunyang was already 2 months pregnant. For the sake of the child in her belly, I looked after her with extra care. You are pregnant, and I permitted you to skip paying your daily respects. So why did you decide to come anyway? I leaned back on the reclining chair and spoke lazily. Xunyang bit her lip and swayed her waist as she came up to serve me tea. Over these past 2 years, I have employed both kindness and severity. No one in the entire household dares to show me disrespect. Madam, have you heard about the heir's affairs on the outside? Xunyang stood respectfully to the side and asked haltingly. I ordered someone to bring a chair over for her. She said somewhat impatiently, the heir just loves to linger among the flowers. Now that you have a child in your belly, just put your mind at ease and take care of the pregnancy. If you give birth to a son or daughter, you'll have someone to rely on in the future. But not every concubine understood this reasoning. She said again with reddened eyes, Madam, this time is different. The heir hasn't come to any of our rooms for 2 months. I'm pregnant, and he hasn't even come to take one look at me. How do you expect me to be at ease? She stole another glance at me and probed. I heard that woman is an official's daughter. Madam, aren't you worried? Worried. Why should I be worried? A few days ago, my brother sent someone to deliver a message. Now that the Duke has been summoned back to the capital, it is said that while the Emperor is grateful for his defense of the country, he is also wary that his achievements overshadow the throne. After returning this time, he will probably just be an idle duke. And I also know that the Duke has suffered from chronic ailments since his early years on the battlefield, so his health isn't very good. In this situation, Shen Kongye still doesn't have a single official post in the court. Once the Duke is gone, the Duke's manor will have only a title, but no real power. And could it be that he would still have a change of heart about me? If it were 2 years ago, he and the princess might actually have had the ability. But now my elder brother is a new noble in the court. His influence is at its peak, and my mother even helps the Empress Dowager acquire quite a few properties among the common people. What else do I need to worry about? But appearances must be kept up. I sighed and said, All right, I will handle this matter myself. You just rest and take care of the baby. I originally had no intention of dealing with this, but once I started investigating, it really opened my eyes. This woman is the concubine-born daughter of the imperial censor who was newly transferred to the capital, called An Jiao. I heard that after a serious illness, her temperament changed drastically. She, an unmarried maiden, actually declared, "Why can't women visit brothels, but men can?" She said so, and she did so, going alone to visit a brothel. If things had stopped there, I'd actually admire her somewhat. Living true to one's nature and being able to take responsibility for oneself counts as having a backbone. But despite looking down on men who visit brothels so much, she ended up hooking up with Shen Kongye inside one. She drank wine in the brothel, wrapped her arms around Shen Kongye's neck, and recited the verses, "Heaven has granted me talent that must be put to use. 1,000 gold coins scattered shall return again." It truly is a masterpiece for the ages. I have to marvel at it. Even my elder brother couldn't compose verses of such majestic grandeur. It's just a pity. If she is a useful talent, she hasn't used it in the right place. Is her ambition merely to hook up with married men in a brothel? Besides, there are plenty of noble families in the capital who can squander 1,000 gold, but a mere censor's family really doesn't count. Is he planning to squander Shen Kongye's wealth? He'll have to ask if I agree to that. Later, even more unbelievable news spread. She went boating on the lake with Shen Kongye, kissed in public, and rolled around in a heap on the deck. The commoners watching from both banks pointed fingers, and the mothers covered their children's eyes. But she shouted, "You people are ignorant. How I use my body is my freedom." I really think she might have fried her brain during that serious illness. After all, as a concubine's daughter, her freedom is up to the mistress of the censor's household. I didn't want to waste my breath negotiating with someone who wasn't thinking straight. So, I had someone leak the news to the censor's wife. I merely let out the news that I had investigated and knew about the matter. and the censor's wife dressed up in her finest and came eagerly to visit. She was a slightly plump woman who looked amiable, but her eyes couldn't hide her calculating nature. With just one glance, I understood the schemes at play. The censor's wife bowed slightly to me, smiling beamingly as she tried to cozy up to me. "Lady Shen, you've just given birth yet recovered so well. The feng shui of the Duke's mansion really does nurture people." I sat upright in my chair without moving a muscle, only smiling as I said, "Since Lady Anne has come for a formal visit, then follow the rules and perform a full formal bow to me. After all, I am the wife of the heir of the first-class Duke's mansion, and moreover, a titled lady personally conferred by His Majesty." The imperial censor's wife's face stiffened, and she awkwardly put away her ingratiating expression. Trembling, she performed a grand obeisance to me. Only then did I wave my hand to have a seat granted and tea served. She sat down uneasily and glanced at me with trepidation. I knew. She must realize now that although I am young, I am not someone easily fooled. At the very least, I looked down on the trick she was used to pulling in the backwaters of Wuzhou, now that we were in the immensely wealthy ducal manor. I didn't speak either, just waiting for her to open her mouth. She finally sighed and said plaintively, "Please don't take offense, wife of the heir. That concubine-born daughter of our family has done such a shameless thing, causing a huge uproar in the capital. As the mistress of the house, I can only cast aside this old face of mine and come to your door to propose a marriage." I took a sip of tea, still saying nothing. She glanced at me again and said, "I know my family's situation too. Nowadays, we don't ask for any formal status. We just hope the Duke's manor can take in Anzhao Jiao as a concubine." I put down the teacup and simply smiled. Lord Censor is over 50 and was only just transferred back to the capital from Wuzhou to take office. It wasn't easy, was it? The censor's wife's face turned pale. The words she had prepared got stuck in her throat, and a look of embarrassment appeared on her face. I hit the nail on the head and continued. "I also know it isn't easy to gain a foothold in the capital, and latching onto a royal relative to seek a smooth life is understandable. However, Madame Anne, indulging your daughter like this, I'm afraid you've lost your sense of propriety." The censor's wife slid down from the chair, her legs went soft, and she knelt down before me. She ought to know that my heart is as clear as a mirror, but I still have to make things clear. And Zhao Zhao has some looks, and Madame Anne thought that if she could become a concubine for some meritorious noble family, it would surely be of some help to the imperial censor. Then, after asking around, in the whole capital, the heir of our ducal palace counts as the most amorous. Madame Shizi, please see clearly. Although I had this intention, I never expected she would use such shameless means. It's just that things have come to this, and there really is no other way. I originally thought that Madame Shizi's virtuous reputation was known far and wide in the capital, and was someone easy to talk to. And thinking that although this isn't honorable, and my family's loss of virtue is a small matter, the Duke's household would surely step in to protect their reputation. Now that the heir's wife has seen through this matter will never be mentioned again. I will go back and have that girl beaten to death with sticks. Surely, given time, this whole thing will blow over. Madame Anne knelt before me, weeping bitterly, looking a dozen years older than when she first walked in. Pitying the hardships of being the mistress of the house, I had Xiaoji help her up. I said leisurely, "Mrs. An, there is really no need for this. Given Zhao Zhao's status as the concubine-born daughter of a fifth-rank official, it wouldn't be out of the question for me to take her in as a concubine." Mrs. Anne froze, looked up at me, and was stunned, as if she hadn't expected me to offer such a good price. I continued, "However, since she would be a concubine marrying into the Duke's mansion, the dowry certainly cannot be lacking." Mrs. Anne's mouth hung open, momentarily not knowing how to answer. She's a smart person. She must know that the last thing the Duke's mansion lacks is money. Since I've opened my mouth now, that's definitely not what I'm after. She threw caution to the wind, bowed to me and said, "Whatever the heir's wife wants, you might as well say it straight." I heard An Jiao Jiao compose several poems in town, and also went to the rouge shop in the East City to sell some secret recipes for lipstick and soap, I said pointedly. Madame Zhang hurriedly nodded and said, "Yes, yes, yes." After waking up from that serious illness, her head was full of these strange ideas. But that rouge shop on the east side of the city didn't buy her stuff at all. That rouge shop is the biggest in the capital. Who would look twice at those things of hers? That's right. That rouge shop is exactly the dowry my mother gave me. The shopkeeper didn't accept her secret recipe, not because it wasn't good, but because in business, the thing one must guard against most is people jacking up the price on the spot. I waved my hand and said, 300 poems, 10 secret recipes. This is the dowry that allowed her to enter the Duke's residence. The 300 pounds? Madame Zhang stared with wide eyes. I smiled and said, "Yes. If Madame An still has such intentions, then go back and prepare." I have been well read since childhood, so I could tell at a glance that the poem An Jiao Jiao recited was not her own work. Some are like a general with a sword across his horse, full of lofty aspirations and ambition, while others are like a brothel patron, plaintive and soft, pitying their own shadow. How can they appear in one person at the same time? After Madame Anne went back, I wasn't in a rush either. Just these two things alone would need her to prepare for some time. But while I wasn't in a rush, there was someone who couldn't wait. This day, as I was in the courtyard playing with my son who was babbling and learning to talk, Shen Kongye came rushing back in a whirlwind. Seeing that he had no intention of looking at our son, I had the nanny carry our son away. Only then did I say, "Since husband has returned to the manor, you should go see Xunyang. She just got pregnant. Her body is weak, and the pregnancy is unstable. Husband ought to comfort her more." Shen Kongye stared at me, opened his mouth, and finally said, "Fine, I'll go in a little while." I couldn't help but smile bitterly. Xunyang was, after all, once the darling of his heart. On the third day after I married into the Duke's manor, he begged me to take her back into the manor. Now, getting him to take even one look at her is such a struggle. When I came back to my senses, I saw that Shen Kongye still hadn't left. I patiently sat down to prepare tea for him, asking unhurriedly, "Does husband have something to say to me?" Shen Kongye pressed my shoulders from behind and said, "Madam is the most reasonable of all. I have found a kindred spirit in the imperial censor's second daughter, Yu Jiao Jiao, and in this life, it must be her and no other." I smiled and handed a cup of tea to him. The daughter of a concubine from a fifth-rank official's family. Coming into the manor as a secondary wife is barely acceptable. If husband likes her that much, I'll just pick a day and arrange it. Shen Kongye's fingertips turned white as he gripped the teacup. After a long while, he finally said, "Joer is a remarkable woman. She despises being a concubine more than anything in her life." Oh, if that's the case, she ought to be even more careful with her words and deeds. An unmarried girl's reputation is of the utmost importance. With the rumors about her and my husband spreading like wildfire, what decent family would marry her as a principal wife? I patiently analyzed the situation with Shen Kongye. Shen Kongye gritted his teeth and said, "Jiao Jiao only wishes to be with me for life. She will not marry another man." I raised an eyebrow and set the teacup down with a crisp clink. "So, what do you mean, husband?" I looked at him with amusement. To think this man is actually my child's father. I originally didn't have too many expectations of Shen Kongyi for this marriage, but now I still can't help but feel chilled. He hasn't fulfilled a single bit of his responsibility as a husband and a father. In front of me, his lawfully wedded wife, he said he wants to spend a lifetime with another woman, just the two of them. What? Does he want to divorce me? But is the current him worthy? My gaze upon him was cold. Perhaps Shen Kongye had never seen this side of me, for he actually looked a bit flustered. Hastily leaving behind the words, "Madam, don't overthink it," he fled in a panic. The next day, I went to the commandery princess's manor to pay my respects. The princess held my hand, her face full of tender pity. Yinner, it was I who spoiled him too much, allowing him to do such a shameless thing. You have been wronged. I lowered my head, not saying a word. The commandery princess added, "Good child, don't stoop to his level. Yesterday his father already gave him a thrashing. You just find someone to get rid of that concubine-born girl. The Duke's manor will back you up no matter what happens." But I sighed and said, "Mother, let's just bring in Zhao Jiao into the manor and make her a concubine." The commandery princess froze, looking at me suspiciously, and asked, "My good daughter-in-law, are you serious?" I nodded firmly and continued, "You know the heir's temperament. Perhaps once she comes in, he won't be that fond of her anymore. Besides, she is the heir's heart's desire after all, and the heir is my husband. The princess wiped her tears and said with gratification, "When I came to propose the marriage that day, I only knew you were gentle and virtuous, and good at managing the household. Only now do I realize you also have such a clever mind. I truly didn't misjudge you." She stroked my hand and added, "Put your mind at ease. No one in the Duke's manor can shake your position." Leaving the county princess's place, I made a detour to see Shen Kongyi. No, he'd been given a whipping and was lying on his stomach on the daybed, wailing and howling. Seeing me arrive, the maid hurried to announce me, but I stopped her and took the ointment from her hands. I applied the medicine to him carefully, bit by bit, while he muttered, "Be gentle, it hurts." I didn't stop my movements, only saying, "Since you know it hurts, don't go asking for trouble again. I warned you, husband, yet you still came eagerly begging mother, practically rushing to get whipped. If you aren't the one in pain, who would be?" Shen Kongye was stunned. He turned his head to look at me, pulling at his wound again. I held him down and continued applying the medicine to him. "Husband, since we got married, when have I not looked out for you? Even if you are blindly infatuated, you must consider the Duke's household's position." Mother wanted me to quietly dispose of her. In his agitation, Shen Kongye struggled to get up. I sighed. I specifically pleaded with Mother to take her in as a concubine. "Husband, this is already the best possible outcome." Having suffered, Shen Kongyi finally understood my well-meaning intentions. He grasped my hand and said gratefully, "You are gentle and virtuous, wife. I am very at ease leaving the arrangements to you." A few days later, the censor's wife sent someone to deliver a box. And Zhao Jiao said she was unwilling to be a concubine, but after being locked at home and starved for a few days, she became compliant. It just so happened that my mom came to see me that day. She frowned and said, "This woman doesn't seem like someone easy to deal with. Once she enters the household, I'm afraid she'll cause quite a bit of trouble." I opened the box and flipped through the papers one by one, a smile involuntarily appearing on my lips. I placed a few sheets of Xuan paper in front of my mother. Mother's eyes lit up, and she clicked her tongue in wonder. "This. Where did you get this? Once we make these, they will surely take the circle of noblewomen in the capital by storm." This is the benefit of that piece of work Mother spoke of. I took out a whole stack of poems. "Send these to brother. Have him publish a poetry collection in the next couple of days. The current emperor is refined. he will certainly take a liking to them. As for these secret recipes, after Mother has someone make them, find more people to test them. Once we're sure there are no issues, present them to the Empress Dowager and the Princess first. My mother smiled until her eyes curved, gently stroked my head, and sighed. Yinner, you've really grown up. On the day An Zhaojiao entered the manor, Shen Kongye gave it plenty of pomp, handling it personally. It nearly rivaled an ordinary official's family marrying a principal wife. But she still wasn't satisfied. She insisted on entering through the main gate. However, with 2 red-tasseled spears crossed at the main gate of the Duke's manor, neither demons nor monsters could get in. Shen Kongye, wearing bright red wedding robes, questioned me. Wife, what is the meaning of this? It is merely a formality. Why are you being so petty? I eyed his bright red wedding robes and smiled. Those 2 red-tasseled spears were sent by Father. If you can lift them, husband, feel free to go try. There is no need to make things difficult for a woman like me here. Shen Kongye's face flushed red, and he flung his sleeves and left. In the end, An Zhaojiao still came in through the side door. When serving me tea, she asked me in front of the Duke's manor's kinsman, Madam is indeed as virtuous and gentle as rumored, but the heir's heart for me is clear for heaven and earth to see. Does Madam not mind even a little bit? Leaving the group of clansmen looking at each other in dismay, pointing fingers at her. As expected of someone from a small household to even ask such a thing. Is she even worthy of the mistress of the house, taking it to heart? Heaven and earth be witness? What a joke! From now on, the heir's wife is her sky. I took her tea, smiled gently, and said, If the heir is pleased, then as his wife, I am naturally pleased as well. From now on, you must join the other sisters in the manor to serve the heir well, and extend the lineage of the Duke's household. She wants a lifetime of just the 2 of us, but I insist on telling her she is no different from the other concubines in this manor. And Zhaojiao felt like she had punched cotton. How could she accept that? She opened her mouth to retort, The heir will only ever dote on. Zhaojiao, shut up. Shen Kongye panicked and growled. And Zhaojiao's face went pale and tears were about to fall. Shen Kongye couldn't bear it and wanted to go over and comfort her. But I took Shen Kongye's hand, walked past An Zhaojiao, and walked onto the platform side by side with him. Anyone who comes to the manor today is a guest. Let the feast begin. I raised my voice. The front hall thundered with gongs and drums. It was the heir and my show. As for An Zhaojiao, no matter how unwilling she was, she could only be silently sent back to the back courtyard. However, I did indeed underestimate Shen Kongye's feelings for An Zhaojiao. For a whole month straight, Shen Kongye stayed the night in An Zhaojiao's room. I was actually happy for the peace and quiet, not having to play the loving couple with him anymore. But it drove the other 4 concubines crazy with anxiety. Xunyang used a stomach ache as an excuse to call for Shen Kongye several times in the night. Shen Kongye couldn't push it off any longer and finally went one day. Who would have guessed that in the middle of the night, An Zhaojiao would cry, scream, and threaten to hang herself, forcibly calling Shen Kongye back. But after Shen Kongye went, An Zhaojiao locked him outside the door, crying and screaming, Shen Kongye, you're dirty. I don't want you anymore. Shen Kongye was totally embarrassed being locked outside, but the more he coaxed, the bigger the scene she made inside. You scumbag! I misjudged you. I've wasted my whole life on the wrong person. Shen Lang, I hate you. Men are all no good, fickle, and unfaithful, abandoning us after you've had your fun. When I arrived, I happened to hear that exact sentence. I couldn't help raising an eyebrow. Since you know that, why would you still stake your everything on a man? I kept a straight face and said to the servants and maids kneeling all over the ground, "If a word of today's events leaks out, watch out for your tongues." Then, with a wave of my hand, 2 young servants smashed in Zhao Zhao's door right open. And Zhao Zhao was collapsed on the floor crying, her hair a mess. Shen Kongye rushed over, pulled her into his arms, and spent a good while comforting her. I looked down at them from above and said, "And Zhao Zhao relies on favor to act arrogantly, competes for affection and is jealous, disturbing the peace of the household. She is fined 3 months' allowance and grounded for 1 month." And Zhao Zhao retorted with red eyes, "It was that bitch Shenyang who started it all. She took advantage of the child in her belly." Xiaoji stepped forward and slapped An Zhao Zhao right across the face. "When the mistress is speaking, what right do you have to interrupt? Oh." An Zhao Zhao was stunned for a moment, and once she realized what happened, she went crazy and tried to come up and hit me, but was pinned to the ground by the page boy. I manage the Duke's household in perfect order, and I never rely on being gentle and virtuous. Shen Kongye was furious and roared, "What are you doing? How can she, a mere maid, hit a master?" I sneered and said word for word, "The heir must have had too much to drink and is talking nonsense. The only masters in this courtyard are you and me." Shen Kongye was left speechless and just glared at me. I added, "Xunyang is physically weak. Ever since she got pregnant, she has worried herself sick. Mother has instructed me multiple times to take good care of this pregnancy. Now the heir only went to rest at Xunyang's for half the night, and it turned into this mess. If An Zhao Zhao is not severely punished, what would Xunyang think? If this pregnancy is secured, a boy would be the heir's second son, and a girl would be the eldest daughter. Which is more important? The heir should weigh it himself." Shen Kongye looked embarrassed, but ultimately didn't say a word. I turned around coldly and left. I stopped calling Shen Kongye husband long ago. As a husband, as a father, he never fulfilled the slightest bit of his responsibility. Standing up for Xunyang was also standing up for myself, who once carried a child for 10 months. For a woman, pregnancy is like walking through the gates of hell. Since I endured that suffering, there's absolutely no way I'd let it be for nothing. Early the next morning, the 4 concubines came to pay their respects to me, dressed in plain clothes and without a speck of makeup. Xunyang led the way, with her belly big and ready to give birth, kneeling on the ground to respectfully serve me tea. The 4 of us have thought it through. Men are unreliable. To make a living in this Duke's manor in the future, we'll have to rely on your protection, madam. Madam, you have a cold face but a warm heart, and you've never treated the 4 of us unfairly. I suppose only women can understand women. From now on, the 4 of us will be completely loyal to you, madam." I don't know why, but my eyes actually teared up a bit. It was right at this moment that I finally felt like the Duke's manor was a home. I helped Xunyang up, patted her hand, and comforted her. That's just how the world is. It's always a bit harder for us women than for men. As long as I'm here, I'll protect you. From then on, whenever they had nothing to do, the 4 of them would come to my courtyard. Sometimes they wouldn't even speak, just sitting there smiling and doing embroidery. The little clothes for my son, Shen Boji, and the one in Xunyang's belly have already piled up enough to last until the year after next. In the 11th month, Xunyang gave birth to a boy. The princess was very happy and rewarded her with quite a few things. She was so silly. She had servants carry them all into my courtyard. When she looked at me, her eyes were gentle. She seemed to have matured a lot. She said, "Madam, if you don't mind, once the confinement month is over, take this child to your courtyard to raise. I don't know many words, and I can't hire a good teacher." I shook my head and said, "Mother and child are connected at the heart. You don't have to do this. In the future, he will study together with Boji." I have already asked my elder brother to arrange a tutor." Xunyang's eyes lit up. Then she lowered her head and wiped her tears. "Madam, meeting you was the best thing to happen to me in this life. The few of us were all wretched souls. It was only after you took us into the manor that we found our blessings. I thought that from then on, our days would be peaceful and quiet. But sadly, that was just our wishful thinking. And Jiao Jiao was a smart one. She knew my position in the Duke's manor was unshakable, and having suffered enough at my hands, she no longer dared to go against me. But she was a restless one. Because Shen Kongye wanted to dismiss the 4 concubines and have Xunyang's son, Gu Yuan, adopted by An Jiao Jiao. This winter was exceptionally cold. The charcoal basin in the room was burning hot, but my heart just couldn't get warm. All you and Mother wanted was nothing more than an heir. Now that Xunyang has given birth to the child, you two should be at ease. Jiao Jiao is a concubine, but has no children. Adopting the child over to her raises the child's status, and I will personally teach him. The 4 of them are merely concubines, and you were the one who brought them in. Their contracts are in your hands. Selling them off and giving them a sum of silver isn't a big deal. From now on, with only you and Jiao Jiao left in the Duke's manor, it will be much easier for you to manage things. I am doing this for your own good." Shen Kongye paced the room, lecturing me with a self-righteous air. Xunyang once exchanged solemn vows with him and shared a passionate love, yet now, after carrying his child for 10 months and giving birth to a son, she ends up being casually sold off. And when the other 3 concubines entered the manor, they had pleased him greatly too, yet this former bedfellow isn't even willing to give them a place to settle down anymore. While Shen Kongye was giving me instructions on this side, An Jiao Jiao went over to Xunyang and the others' courtyard to smugly throw her weight around. It is currently the dead of winter, and the 4 of them are kneeling in the courtyard braving the heavy snow, refusing to get up. Xunyang had even just finished her confinement. Xunyang prostrated herself on the ground, tears streaming down her face. "If you want to give my child to that slut to raise, you might as well just beat me to death, but I will haunt you even as a ghost." The other 3 concubines also said, looking deathly pale, "We were concubines in the Duke's mansion, and now we're being kicked out. We might as well just die. All this talk about giving us money if a woman has nowhere to settle down. Having money just means she's fated to be bullied. Since the heir is so heartless, just beat the 4 of us to death right now." I lifted the padded curtain, facing the bone-chilling wind outside, and said, "Get up, all of you." The 4 of them bit their lips, looked at me with tears in their eyes, and finally stood up obediently. Actually, I know that if my mother were here, she would surely advise me not to go against the heir. If the second son is raised by Shen Kongyi, he will surely turn out to be a good-for-nothing, and certainly won't pose a threat to me. But the 4 of them have opened their hearts to me, so I should be foolish for once. I turned back and asked indifferently, "On what grounds?" Shen Kongyi frowned, as if he hadn't heard clearly what I was saying. What did you say?" "Since Shizzy knows their deeds of sale are in my hands, bought with my dowry, why should I listen to your arrangements? Shen Kongyi slapped me, knocking me into the corner of the table. "By what right? Because I am your husband, and that makes me your heaven." I wiped the blood from the corner of my mouth and smiled, then let the sky fall. I voluntarily asked to kneel in the ancestral hall. This is the first time I've knelt in the ancestral hall since getting married. The 4 concubines didn't say a word either, and knelt with me outside the ancestral hall. The princess came to see me, but didn't tell me to rise. "Lin Yin, I took you for a smart one, but I didn't expect you to be this foolish. It's just a few concubines. If they're sold off, they're sold off," the princess said coldly. Even while kneeling, I kept my back perfectly straight. "Mother, You should know your son's nature. I am certainly not a heartless, ungrateful man. It is obvious at a glance who is behind this making trouble. If I don't put a stop to her stirring up waves this time, the next one she plots against will be me. I don't care about myself, but I am already a mother. Parents who love their children plan far ahead for them. I must consider Baiji. Second, getting rid of the mother and keeping the child as soon as Xunyang is out of confinement is detrimental to the reputation of the Duke's mansion and the heir. As the mistress of the house, I certainly cannot allow the Duke's mansion's reputation to be damaged by the instigation of villains. I will kneel here until the heir changes his mind. I spoke earnestly, and the commandery princess remained silent for a long time. Finally, she sighed and said, "Kongye is pure-hearted, but he is easily misled by others. I know how to handle this." When the princess returned to her own manor, she took An Jiao Jiao away under the pretext of needing someone to serve her. An Jiao Jiao didn't know the rules and was acting jealous, so the princess specially invited an old matron from the palace to teach him the rules. Shen Kongye's eyes turned red with anxiety. He chased all the way to the princess's manor, but not only did he fail to see An Jiao Jiao, he also got slapped twice by the Duke of Zhenguo. And Jiao Jiao's heart-rending screams could also be heard coming from the neighboring courtyard. "Shen Lang, come save me quicker." The nanny snorted coldly. "You little slut! Is the heir's name something you're fit to utter? Slap her mouth." "Don't hit me. Stop hitting me, nanny. I beg you, I know I was wrong." In less than half a day, Shen Kongye gave in. He rushed into the ancestral hall, his eyes splitting with rage, and said hatefully, "I won't send them away anymore. Happy now?" I stood up, feeling pain in my legs, and Xiaoji supported me. "It's good that the heir knows his mistakes," I said indifferently. Shen Kongye gritted his teeth. "Lin Yin, I misjudged you. To think you have such a vicious heart. The heir should see people clearly in the future." As I walked past him, I didn't even spare him a glance. And Jiao Jiao was sent back only after being disciplined by the matrons for a week. Covered in wounds, she couldn't get out of bed at all. Later, when I went to the palace to pay my respects to the Empress Dowager, she pointed at my forehead and scolded, "You child, you're just too soft-hearted. If that little slut were in my hands, how could she still be alive today?" I lowered my head and sighed. Yinner is dull. If I had learned even the slightest bit from you, Empress Dowager, I wouldn't have ended up being punished to kneel in the ancestral hall. The Empress Dowager added, "I know you've suffered. There are things you dare not do, but I can. I know your worries. Rest assured, that little slut won't be having children." When I was leaving, the nanny who had served the Empress Dowager for many years told me that when An Jiao Jiao was at the princess's manor, the disciplined nanny had forced a bowl of sterilization medicine down her throat. I suddenly wanted to go see An Jiao Jiao. This was the first time I'd gone to her courtyard since An Jiao Jiao had entered the manor. The maids and servants inside and outside the room were so scared they knelt all over the floor, trembling. And Jiao Jiao shrank back towards the inside of the bed, shouting, "Quick, quick, go fetch Shen Lang back." But not a single maid or servant answered her. Instead, they served me tea. I drank my tea unhurriedly, saying nothing. Watching her trembling in fear, it seemed my appetite had improved quite a bit. Seeing that I had no intention of making things difficult for her, she regained a bit of her arrogance. "Don't think you've won. You're just a pathetic wretch. You'll never get your husband's love your whole life. You're just a cast-off. Just go spend the rest of your life clinging to your son." Husband $?? I assume she means Shen Kongye. But I married into the Duke's manor, just to marry the heir. As for who the heir is, it doesn't matter. However, Shen Kongye is indeed a bit rotten. If he loved me, that would actually make me sick. and my son will inherit the Duke of Zhengguo's mantle, rising to become a marquis and a minister." And Zhao Jiao added, "Do you know why Shen Kongye doesn't like you? Your eyes are full of desire, while my heart and eyes are filled only with him. I only want him, and he only wants me." I put down my teacup, non-committal. That's just how the world is, and it's never easy for a woman. Even if I had to do it all over again, I would still plan for myself. It's good if there is love between a man and a woman, but if not, so be it. I hope the heir can protect you for your whole life." I sighed, turned around, and left. After all, this was all she had left. Half a month later, An Zhaojiao was able to get out of bed, but Shen Kongye took her and eloped. He left a letter saying that An Zhaojiao didn't want to be trapped in the Duke's manor, confined to this tiny place. The world was so big, and he wanted to accompany An Zhaojiao to see it. It was simply the biggest joke in the world. Only now did I realize that An Zhaojiao might truly be an extraordinary woman. Could she be an enchantress, skilled in witchcraft? Did she pour a bewitching potion down Shen Kongyi's throat? As the heir to the Duke's manor, Shen Kongyi has parents above and 2 sons below. He isn't filial to his parents, doesn't educate his heirs, yet he actually wants to take a concubine to roam the ends of the earth. This matter has caused a huge uproar in the capital. The Duke, Her Highness the Commandery Princess, and I have become the objects of the entire city's sympathy. The Duke of Zhengguo fell ill and never recovered, and the Lady Princess's hair turned white overnight. She even had thoughts of following the Duke in death. Shen Kongye can be unfilial to his parents, but I, having received the honors of the Duke's household, cannot fail to be filial to my parents-in-law. I entrusted the Duke's household to Xunyang, and went to the princess's estate to serve my parents-in-law. The Duke's resolute face was filled with signs of decay. He told me, "Daughter-in-law, that unfilial son of mine has caused you great suffering. I have already petitioned His Majesty that your son, the eldest legitimate grandson of the ducal manor, shall inherit the title. The burden of the ducal manor is now passed into your hands. You must not refuse." Her Highness the Princess also spoke some heart-to-heart words with me. "In his early years, your father-in-law suffered too much hardship fighting on the battlefield, so I spoiled Kongye a bit. From now on, you must raise Boji and Yuan well. Do not let them follow in their father's footsteps." When the Duke passed away, Gu Boji, a 4-year-old child, walked at the very front holding his grandfather's spirit tablet. It was a bit of a struggle for him, but he walked very steadily. The Emperor said the ducal manor has a worthy successor. The Empress Dowager secretly told me, "Guan, a woman is only truly free once she has outlived her man." 3 months after the Duke left, the princess followed him. Considering we were a widow and orphan, the Emperor took extra care of Boji, often bringing him into the palace to serve as a companion to the crown prince. The year Boji turned 8, Shen Kongye and An Zhaojiao came back. He went to the princess's manor first, only to learn that his parents had already passed away. He wept bitterly but was blocked outside the door by the page boys. Before his death, the Duke of Zhengguo had left instructions that he was not allowed to set foot in the princess's manor ever again. When he learned that he had lost the title, he immediately rushed to the ducal manor. The page boys at the ducal manor didn't let him in either. They just passed a message to me. I did not want to see him. He pointed at the plaque of the Duke's household and cursed loudly. "Lin Yin, nothing is more poisonous than a woman's heart. You really have some nerve, actually daring to plot for my title. I will report this to His Majesty and file a complaint against you, woman." The onlooking crowd pointed fingers and gossiped. It was the Duke of Zhengguo himself who personally asked His Majesty to pass the title to your son. When the Duke of Zhengguo and the princess were critically ill, did you serve by their side? You were out having a good time with your concubine, while the young duke's mother waited on them for months without even undressing to rest. Oh, stop it. How is he worthy of being the little duke's father? The little duke is the crown prince's study companion now. He's only 8, but he wields a red-tasseled spear just as well as the Duke of Zhengguo did back in the day. Hey, look at that woman. She doesn't look that great. Isn't she pretty much the same as my old lady? Last time I saw the little duke's mother from a distance, she didn't look like someone who's given birth at all. She's so precious. And Zhao Zhao's face turned deathly pale as she slumped to the ground. Shen Kongye clenched his back teeth until they bled, yet surprisingly couldn't find a single word to refute it. I ordered Xiao Tao to take out 2 silver bills and a title deed. Xiaoji threw the silver bills on the ground and said disdainfully, "There is a house in the capital suburbs. Come to the Duke's Manor every year to collect 2 silver bills. As for the rest, Master Shen, please suit yourself." Shen Kongye's eyes turned red with agitation, and he shouted angrily, "I am Lin Yin's husband, the little duke's father. How dare you treat me with such disrespect?" Xiaoji let out a cold snort and threw the divorce letter I had drafted at Shen Kongye. She said disdainfully, "If Master Shen hadn't mentioned it, I would have forgotten. This is the divorce letter my lady has given you. You have never fulfilled even a bit of your responsibility as a husband or a father. This residence and these 2 banknotes are already the last bit of dignity my lady is giving you." After saying that, Xiao Tao turned her head and walked away. The gates of the Duke's mansion also closed. The crowd of onlookers outside laughed their heads off. This was the first man in the current dynasty to be divorced by his wife. And Zhao Zhao went up and kicked him. "You coward! You couldn't even keep your title, and you even got divorced by a woman. How could there be such a useless man like you?" Shen Kongye had a belly full of anger with nowhere to vent, so he slapped her to the ground. "If it weren't for you instigating me to wander the world with you back then, how would I have lost my title?" Shen Kongye picked up the banknotes and title deed from the ground, mounted his horse, and headed towards the palace. But he knelt for a day and a night, yet neither the emperor nor the empress dowager summoned him. Instead, the emperor promoted me to a first-rank lady, saying he knew of my hardships over these years, and that raising a young son alone was not easy. I didn't expect that An Zhao Zhao would actually come to request a private audience with me. She knelt at the back door of the Duke's mansion, humbly begging me. Madam has always been generous to others. Before, I didn't know better, but now I've suffered the consequences. Shen Kongye won't give me money to spend, and he even kicked me out of the house. I am, after all, a concubine of the Duke's manor. I beg Madam to show pity." So it turns out she doesn't just want Shen Kongye alone, she also wants my pity. Xunyang curled her lips and said, "Shen Kongye really has no balls. He's actually capable of kicking a woman out of the house and not giving her money to spend. Didn't he say 1 life, 1 couple before Yiyu? How come it's not a couple anymore?" Q. I smiled and beckoned to Xiao Tao. "You tell her. She and Shen Kongye are deeply in love. It's just a little spat right now. Tell her not to take it to heart. If she goes back and softens up, Shen Kongye's heart will melt for her. However, she is indeed a concubine of the Duke's manor, so the monthly allowance will still be given to her." Xunyang rolled her eyes. "Madam really is a good person." I think I'm pretty good too. So I will also live a very good life." Later, several times when Shen Kongye came to the manor to fetch silver, he begged the servants to let him have a look at Boji and Yuan. Xunyang spat and said, "Filthy scum. Is he even worthy? Don't see him. It would just dirty the eyes for nothing." I remained silent, however, and called out to Boji and Yuan, who were practicing with spears and clubs in the courtyard. Do you want to see him? Boji drew a feathered arrow, shot with unerring accuracy, and hit the bullseye dead center. Who is he? Why should your son see him? Yuan was a bit younger and still childish. He stuck his long spear straight into the ground. Exactly. Brother is the young duke. If just anyone could see him, wouldn't he be busy to death every day? I smiled and added, all right, from now on, Mom won't ever ask again. Shen Kongye cried and made a scene, begging me several times, saying he knew he was wrong and regretted his past actions, hoping I could give him a chance to mend his ways. He said he finally realizes now that the one he truly loves is me, that he was blinded by Anjiao Jiao, that he's already kicked Anjiao Jiao out, and won't ever touch her again. He also said that from now on he would cherish me, respect me, and love me. It's just a pity. Belated thoughtfulness is cheaper than a dog. I've long since stopped giving a damn. I finally understand that saying from the Empress Dowager, a woman is only truly free once she's outlived her man. From now on, life in the Duke's manor will get better and better.